So hopefully now you have had a chance to look over some of the different conditional tags that are available in WordPress, check out some examples, and it's time to practice. Now this practice may be a little bit trickier, but let's see what we could do here. What you're going to do is activate the 1.12 conditional tag starter theme, get that up and running, and then pop open your index.php. And you're going to see there a bunch of comments trying to get you to write conditional statements that will return true if that condition is met. Now you may be able to get all of them, you may not be able to get any, but try adding as many pages as many of the conditional tags as you can. Now, because again, there's no navigation yet that we've implemented in this theme, then you're going to have to test this by going into the admin area like we did before and clicking on a post or a page, or using the customizer to set the home page or the blog page, static home page versus blog listing. And also, to test some of these, you could just type in /category or /tag, etc. to get that URL directly. So take a stab at this. Also, you might need some things like the double ampersand. This checks to see and if two conditions are met, or the double pipe character. This checks to see or if one or the other of two conditions are met, and then the exclamation point, which means not. So if you say is page with an exclamation point in front of it, so exclamation point is page would be, is it not this page? So those are some helpful tips for you. See how far you could get. Don't feel defeated if it's just confusing and not making sense. Some of this stuff is actually a little bit confusing at this point. So see what you could get through. Go ahead, stop here, see what you could get through, and then come back and we'll pick up and I'll show you how I would approach these. All right, so I'm just going to start at the top here. And the static front page is pretty simple in theory. What we're going to say is front page. So that's our template tag for it. Again, if we're going to write conditional statements in this way, we put the colon here and then we have to end if right down there. So if this works, we could say static front page. Okay, so let's just go ahead and test this real quick. In my customizer, I can come to static front page, make sure that I'm on it, and it displays. Great. Now, what if I go to latest blog posts? Now we've got an issue. And this isn't you, this is WordPress, so don't feel bad. But what's going to happen is that this is going to work in either case. So we have to add one more piece of code here, and we have to say if it is a static front page, or if it is the front page and it's not the home. So home will only fire if it's blog listings. So now we should have that distinguished. So we're saying if it's the front page and it's not the blog listing page or the blog home. So now if I reload it, come into my static front page and switch to this, notice that that disappears. Okay, so that's really helpful to know. A little bit funky, but that's just how WordPress works. Now, the next one's going to be a little bit simpler. I could just say PHP if is home, because this is only going to fire off if it's on the main blog post listing page. So that could be if you assign it to be something like your blog page, or it could be if it's your main home page. So either way, this should work, and we could just say h1 blog. So now if I refresh this here and come in and switch to that, it'll say blog. So that's great. Now let's come down and say page, but not front page. So we'll start off with the easy part. We could say PHP if is page. So that's pretty simple, and that should work, right? So let's just close that up. And we'll just display something that says page. Okay, so now let's come back over to our site. And let's just switch to a static front page. Now we've got a problem. Now notice that this is working for if there's a static front page, but this statement is also true because not only is it your home page, it's also just a regular page. So this is a place where we're going to have to expand this a bit as well. So what we'll do in this case is we'll say if it is a page and it's not is front page, then go ahead and display it. And that should give us what we're looking for there. Now let's come down and display a single post. So we could do something very similar. We could say PHP if is single, and that is referring to if this is a single blog post. And we're just going to say post. Cool. So let's go ahead and test that. And we could test this a few ways. We could throw up our latest posts. No, that's not going to look through. That's not going to link through to them. So let's go ahead and get out of here and come into our dashboard, click on a post, go ahead and just open that up and it should say post. Well, that is great. But remember I said post is kind of a generic term? Go ahead and upload a media file and view that attachment page. So if you view that attachment page, notice that it's going to say post as well. Well, if we look down in the next conditional statement, we want to have a separate one if it's specifically media. So if it's not media, or what WordPress calls is attachment, because it could be media, it could be a PDF, it could be all sorts of things. You don't always know. So what I'm saying is if it's a single post and it's that, then go ahead and display that. Now, there's a bunch more of these. I'm going to go through them, but I will mention that I'm just demonstrating some conditional tags. You would never have a file this big with so many heavy conditional tags, because every time you run these, WordPress has got to check if it's true or not. So you would not create one gigantic template with a bunch of conditional tags like this. We're showing an example. We're doing a demo here. And as we go through the course, I'll show you some best practices and how you would never build a theme this way. We're just playing around and trying to get familiar and comfortable and understand kind of how it's working. So if I come back into my theme now, notice that no title there. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to speed this up a little bit, and I could copy and paste this, change it around a bit to say if is attachment. And then I could label this attachment. Again, we should be using the echo, getting strings that we could translate of text, but we're not worried about that in this particular demo. So now I could see that it's an attachment, and if I go back to my post from before, we could see that it just says post and it doesn't say attachment. Okay, so coming down to the categories. So if it's a category archive, I could find that out as well. And I could say if is category. There's also has category, so that one might be helpful. Like if you're in a post and you want to see if that category exists or is in there and style it or do something special with it, you could do that. So if is category, and I'm going to introduce you to a new tag here. We could say single cat title. And what that allows you to do is get the category for a category page outside of the loop. So let's go ahead and test that out. And in fact, we'll just do this real quick. I'm going to copy and paste this into the tag. We could test it at the same time. And it's got a corresponding template tag as well. So let's come over, and the way we're going to test this is we could just put /category and /tag in. So if you have your site set up to use pretty permalinks, you do want to be using that to have this work. Okay, so to test this out, I'm going to come into posts, come into a category, and click to view it. So notice that I go /category and then a specific category. You could just type that in as well if you just have one and you know what it is. So notice that that's going to give us what we want. If we come back into the tags, and again, if you don't have one of these, you've got to assign them, but I've got a few set up already, so I'm just going to click into there, and we could see that that is displaying as we would expect as well. So a lot of powerful things we've got going on here. It probably won't surprise you. I'll just copy and paste this to make it kind of quick. Is author. And this could be if it's an author page. And the tag for this is a little bit different. The archive title. Again, you don't have to know these yet. I'm kind of sprinkling in some stuff a little bit early, and we're going to come back and look at that. And we could test this simply by if you type the word author and then whatever your username is. You have admin access, there's probably posts assigned to you, and then you could get that information back. And we'll show you how to customize this as well later and some different ways that you could do this. But again, conditional tags. We'll take a look at 2 more of these. This is going to be pretty much the same. It's just going to be is date. You could drill down. Is it a month page? Is it a year page? Again, that's going to look pretty much the same. And then finally, I'll show you one last one. I'm just copying this block again and again, and that's is 404. So maybe you saw that was an option. That's just going to see, is it a 404 error? And here we should probably use some sort of template tag to filter our statement, but I'm just going to type the word 404. So if I come into my site now and I have no page called 404, I'll just put 404Z to make sure, okay, that doesn't work. And if I were to simply type a year in using the normal permalink status. Okay, so there you have it, a bunch of conditional tags. Now, this was an example to the extreme just to demonstrate how template tags work and how specifically conditional tags work. But really, we're going to come back to this topic later and get some best practices around it. Again, you don't really want to approach conditional tags in this way because it can slow things down, and WordPress has better mechanisms for going about doing some of the things that we've seen in this example. So really what you want to take away at this point is that you can check to see if conditions are met. WordPress has a bunch of these different tags. Sometimes they might not expect exactly how you would think, so you might have to play around and do a little research, but they're there. You're going to come across them, and they are helpful to know. So take some time to play around with them, and then we're going to get into our last little thing here on PHP for WordPress, and that is hooks.